follow-up to Elephant Parts. Did you ever see Elephant Parts?
Only pieces of it.
Yeah, well, that's sort of, it's a gang of stuff that I've been doing over the last few years, some with, that I did for television and some that I did for cable, and with a lot of people who weren't big stars, and Whoopi Goldberg and Goldthwait and Jay Leno, and who else is in there?
Well, let's
Martin
see.
Mull, Roseanne.
The guy from St. Elsewhere, Ed Begley Jr.
Ed's in there as a first American pontiff, surfer pope.
A surfer dude.
Yeah, totally.
Why don't we have a piece, actually. There's little bits in it, 5-second concerts,
Right.
5-second theater. Why don't you set up the one that we're going to see here?
Well, how do I set it up? This is a 5-second theater, of which there are many.
You've adapted a classic.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, let's take a look at it.
5-Second Theater presents Old Yeller.
It doesn't take a long time to get.
Also, the Hallelujah Chorus is attempted in a
Yeah, the
similar-
Vienna Sausage Choir.
Mm-hmm. Now, who came up with all of this stuff?
Oh, it's just a bunch of mad people out on the left coast. You know, just over the years, you grab people around you and you tell each other jokes, and then somebody's got a camera, and the next thing you know, you're on TV.
Now, tell me, you mentioned earlier, had I seen Elephant Parts, and we had seen pieces of it on MTV. Bits were pulled as videos. Are there going to be video pieces pulled from this to air?
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe. Yeah, I don't know why there wouldn't be. I mean, you guys could show some if you wanted to, I guess.
Oh, well, thank you. Okay, we'll send this up to the library in that case. All right, we're going to take a break. We have more videos coming up tonight, and we also have more with Michael Nesmith, and we're going to talk about future plans, past productions, etc. Right here, this is Cheap Trick, It's Only Love. Well, we're here in the studio with my monkeys, but as the songwriter for Stone Pony's Different Drum.
Linda's first hit. Bless her heart.
Well, now, how did that all come about when you were just a wee lad?
Well, a long story, but I wrote a whole bunch of songs when I first got out into California, and I was playing in a band and stuff. And there was a club that's still there called the Troubadour, except it's a heavy metal joint now. But then it was a folk club, and I was a master of the hootenannies. I stood up and introduced the people there and sort of was a host, played some songs myself, and I wrote 2 or 3 dozen songs during that time. One of them was a different drum, and Linda was at the hootenannies. She was there with the Stone Ponies, and the Birds, and all the real old guys of rock and roll.
Oh, really?
I mean...
Well, that's a brief retrospective look into the career of Michael Nesmith. We're going to take a big leap. We're going to totally surpass the Monkees right now, one of your old bands, and talk about the movie that you have coming out in early '87 called Square Dance. Explain the movie and who's in it and stuff.
Well, Jane Alexander, Jason Robards, and Rob Lowe, and a new girl named Winona Ryder. Noni, who's my pick, she's going to be a mega star by the time this movie's out. She's sensational. She's about 15, I think, or 16. And it's a story of a young girl who leaves a farm where she's grown up with her grandpa and goes into the big city, and there she meets and falls in love with Rob. Rob plays a demented is the wrong word, retarded, more kind of a retarded guy. Best work of his career. He plays a 22-year-old guy with the mind of like an 11 or a 12-year-old. It's a very sweet, poignant part, and my guess is it'll change Rob's career completely.
What was your role in the movie?
I was the executive financier. Michael Nesmith presents, sort of the same thing I did with Repo Man. Did you ever see Repo Man?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sort of the same thing I did with Repo Man.
Now, you were the executive producer of Repo Man, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
What exactly does that mean?
Well, a producer is the kind of the guy that sits at the top of the pyramid and pulls everything together. But you don't, it's sort of like absolute power. You don't get to do a lot because every time you twitch, things fall over, and so you just have to sit there and kind of, you pay for things, that's one of the things you do, and you hire people, but basically you try to get hooked up with good creative guys and let them go do what they want to do, which is what happened with Square Dance and with Repo Man.
So with this girl, Noni,
Mm-hmm.
did you, cast her and say, baby, I'm going to make you a star?
No, not Noni. Noni's a star on her own. I didn't cast her anyway. It was Dan Petrie, who was the director, who found her. He called me up and said, "There's this girl in Lucas, she played the second female lead in Lucas, the little girl who was in love with, can't think of the guys, with Lucas." She played the little girl who was in love with Lucas. She was like 12 in this movie. Found her. Dan says, "You got to see this girl." I looked at her. She had a great test. I said, "Great." And then by the time she was working with Dan and opposite Rob and opposite Jane Alexander, who of course is just a big player, she turned in a performance that's breathtaking. Well, you see it. It's really something.
That's coming out when?
Be out the middle of February. Actually, it opens the Park City U.S. Film Festival up at Sundance in Utah, but it'll be in the theaters probably the middle of February.
So aside from movies that you've been working on lately and your own home video stuff with Pacific Arts, you also recently were up on stage with another the guys, and we're going to talk about that. But right now we have this word from Snickers. With Michael Nesmith, who has a comedy compilation tape. It's available now. It's called Dr. Duck's Super Secret All-Purpose Sauce. But we already talked about this, so I hope you saw that. I hope you saw that. Now, recently you played on stage with the Monkees. You finally decided to go back with them. First of all, what was it like to be on stage with them?
Well, okay. The way it was to be on stage with them was wonderful. Because I loved the guys and they loved me, I guess. And it was a gas. But the reason I haven't been with them up until that point is just because, you know, a year ago, when Peter called up and said, "We're going to go out, you want to go?" I was booked. I was busy. Wasn't anything I could do. I was doing square dance, starting up a new movie now called Tape Heads, a movie coming very quick, which I can't tell you the title of, which is going to be really good. But all those things were in the shoot. Dr. Duck's was being done, doing a video cassette magazine called Overview.
How come you can't tell the title?
Of what?
You said there's another movie.
Well, because if I told the title, you'd know what it was, and I can't tell you what it is because we've got this real kind of trick, secret, nifty rollout that we're going to do.
Okay.
And it'll ruin the surprise.
So back to the Monkees.
Yeah. Well, so it was fun. I mean, you know, it was. I got to play for a long, you know, and so when I said, but if you get to L.A., I can't go out on the road with you. I can't go out for 4 months on the road. But if you get to L.A., I'll play. And then they also said, well, what happens if we do a movie? And I said, I'm in.
And are they going to do it?
Well, I don't know. It kind of goes off and on and off and on. You know, they're so successful on tour. Gee, the guys are doing great.
Are you surprised at the new Monkees phenomenon?
Now, the new Monkees?
No.
Okay.
The new
old
phenomenon of the old Monkees.
That's right. The grand old Monkees were called. The Goms. Well, I don't know that I'm surprised, Martha, but but I'm satisfied, happy, you know, gratified by it. I mean, I'm happy that I look at those shows, they still work, they're fun. You guys did, I mean, you know, putting it on the air, I mean, that really hit the ball over the wall.
Did the Monkees ever meet the Beatles?
Well, Mickey, yes, I spent quite a bit of time with John in England, and yes, we did.
Sort of the summit meeting.
There were some times, but I tell you the biggest time was one time, it was me, Clapton, McCartney, and Harrison sitting in a restaurant in England. This was in the 60s, and everybody was psychedelic. We had funny glasses and strange shirts. And John came in, and he had a tape recorder, a little, you could kind of press it, and he says, "You've got to hear this." And he played this tape recorder.
I know it was.
What?
Jimi Hendrix.
It was Hey Joe. He played me Hey Joe by Jimi Hendrix. And everybody was just reverential. I mean, the guy had done it. So I went back to the hotel and I said, Mick, I got to tell you something. And Mick says, Mike, I got to tell you something. And I said, okay, you first. He says, I saw this guy in a club and I hired him to open for us on the road, starting on the first American tour. I said, who? He said, Jimi Hendrix.
And how long did Jimmy stay on the tour?
Well, he made it to Forest Hills. And then, you know, it was a sea of waving pink arms saying, "We want the Monkees," and he finally flipped everybody the bird and muttered an expletive and walked off, bless his heart. I used to sneak down before the show and go and just, the first time I ever saw Marshall Stack, first time I ever saw him was in North Carolina It was the trio. These guys came out, you know, their hair was, you know, like 9 feet across, and it was all backlit, so it looked like they were on fire. And then I stood in, and Jimmy, you know, flips the guitar over and starts playing the opening lines to Foxy Lady. I'd never heard anything like that in my life. I was just, you know, brought me to my knees, moved me back 3 feet. So every night I'd sneak down to the stage and I'd sit hidden, you know, with all these people sitting screaming, "We want the monkeys," listening to this exalted music that this guy was making. Hendrix was something, I'll tell you. I don't mean to sound like an old codger, you know what I mean? But Hendrix was something.
Well, in 20 years from today, we'll be reminiscing in a similar way about how John Bon Jovi discovered Cinderella.
Or Dave.
It does continue on. Michael Nesmith has been here in the studio. We have tape heads to look forward to, Square Dance, a possible Monkees movie.
A possible one, sure. I mean, I'm there for it.
Is that it? Yep. Oh, that's it.
We're out of here. Sayonara.
We have 4 in a row, starting with this new one from Madonna.